and I'll start letting everyone in.
And good afternoon to everyone who's joining. We're just going to hang on a couple of minutes while we let everybody in, and then we'll try and make a start at about 2 minutes past. Lovely to see so many people here. Thank you for joining us. Diolch. Pranam, if you're just joining us, we'll just give it a couple of minutes just till we've got everybody in, and then we'll make a start in a minute or so.
I feel like you need that as a pre-recorded message.
Yeah.
It just plays every like 20
just keeps on like a loop.
Thanks for joining. It's going to be 10 minutes.
Yeah, totally. What do you reckon, Elise? Do you think we've got everybody there? Or are you still letting people in?
There's a couple of people still joining, but
okay, we'll just hang on for them to join then, and then we'll make a start in a minute.
I think that looks like everyone now, Vic, if you're ready.
Oh, fantastic. Diolch. Pranam da, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the second Lunch and Learn in this summer series. So today today we're going to be talking about how to run a workshop to map your service. My name's Vic Smith, I'm a service designer here at the Centre for Digital Public Services. And today I'm going to be talking alongside Liam Collins, so I'll hand you over now so he can introduce himself. Over to you, Liam.
Thanks, Vic. Yeah, so my name's Liam. I'm the interaction designer here at CDPS, and it's lovely to be here with you all today. So today what we're going to try and cover in this session is we're going to start with kind of like an introduction to mapping, what it is, what they look like or what they might look like. Then we're going to move on to why we map, what we can achieve with maps, how they help us really. Then we're going to kind of go through a little practical run through, like a step-by-step how to create a map. There's so many different types of maps, and like we're going to try and talk a lot throughout the session around there's not really one right or wrong way to do it, but we're going to just show you a way that you can do it that's quite an easy entry point sort of way to map your services if you've never done it before. So yeah, we'll do that as a little practical run through, and then we'll go through some next steps and some takeaways and stuff like that. So let's hand you over to Vic.
So we're going to be starting off then today thinking about what is mapping. So in user-centered design, we use maps for lots of different reasons. Main focus of that being to visualize different aspects of the user's experience and try and build an understanding of the service. And sometimes we might be doing that in its current state so that we can understand any pain points, any difficulties that users are currently facing, but also then looking for opportunities to make improvements. So we're going to start off in these next few slides, just going through some of the examples of where we might map in user-centered design. Thanks, Elise. So in this first slide, we've got an example of an empathy map. So those of you who joined us for the last session in this Lunch and Learn series with Promise and Tom, they went through the process of creating infinity maps to gain insight from common experiences that users have whilst experiencing their service. And then they also shared with you an empathy map, which we've got an example of here, which is about starting to build an understanding of how the user experiences that service in terms of what's happening to them and what they're thinking, they're feeling whilst they move through that service. Today, though, on this next slide, we're going to be looking at customer journey maps. So first of all, a little note on language. Today, I will interchangeably probably call these, as will Liam, customer journey maps and user experience maps. And there are possibly a number of other terms that people would use to explain this. But just so we've got a common understanding on this, we'll be using these terms, as I say, interchangeably: customer journey map, user experience map. But what we mean by that is we're looking at mapping the end-to-end experience of a service from the user perspective, only really looking at their actions, their thoughts and their feelings that they've expressed, and we will have gathered through our user research insights. So that's what our focus is going to be on today. Over to you, Liam.
Okay, thanks very much. So yeah, there's, like Vic says, there's lots of different types of maps. There's lots of different ways that you can map. You might call it a journey map and keep it more broad. You might call it a customer map. You might call it a user experience map. I've seen these things called so many different names, and I've also seen like the same thing, but in lots of different, variations as well. It all depends on what it is you're trying to learn or what you're trying to achieve with the map. And they can be super detailed and really kind of intricate in what they're mapping out. And we'll show an example in a bit of that, or they could be a little bit more high level. And we'll try and keep today a little bit more of a high level, just because it's more of like an introduction to how to run this as a workshop. So in this particular example of a journey map, if you were to read this from left to right and just looking at that top row, you've got phase of journey. So really what you're trying to do is to map out somebody's experience through your service, or somebody's journey through your service, right? And so step by step, first they do this, then this happens, then they do this, then they do this. And as you come down to the next row, which is actions, we're talking about like, what they're doing at that stage. So, this is what's happening at this stage. This is their interaction at this stage. And then as you move down into like thoughts, that's like how they're feeling at this stage. So this is a frustration for them. I feel like this. And what we're trying to do when we create these maps is to bring in as much of like the insights that come from your research to inform this map. So it's easy to think that a journey map is like just a sort of fabricated, and this is John and they do this and this, but actually like what you're trying to do is to inform this map through your research, to build a picture of how somebody's moving through this service and how they're feeling as they go through this service, and vitally like what the good and the bad experiences are through this service, because it's helped you to identify and bring all that into one place. So if you move on to the next slide for me, Elise. Thanks very much. These things, like what we've shown so far, the couple of examples, both digital examples created on screen, perhaps run as a workshop on screen, mapped out on screen, but actually you can totally do this stuff in person. You can totally do this stuff with Post-it notes, just some sort of marker pens, flip charts, whatever it is you want to do. You can do this with whatever. You can put it on the back of a piece of kitchen roll if that's what you want to do. It doesn't really matter. It's just about visualizing something in whatever way that makes sense to you, and whatever way that makes sense to help you learn the thing that it is that you're trying to learn. Okay, so if you move on to the next slide, we'll look at a slightly more complex version.
Yeah, I'm just thinking then, Liam, about this idea of doing customer journey maps on a piece of kitchen roll. It's not a bad idea. So the last little map that we're just going to have a little look at now, and as I said before, there are many, many different types of maps, is a service blueprint. So as I said, today we're mainly going to focus on the customer journey and those customer interactions and how they're experiencing that service. But we can see from the service blueprint that customer journey is actually one of the strands that exists on a service blueprint. So one of the activities that you can do once you've finished your user experience map is to then build into it the specific interactions that happen with the organisation that's offering that service, and then also looking at the interactions that happen. So that's the sort of front stage of the service, the bit that the customer can actually see, the user of the service can actually see. But then you can also build in the backstage actions, what's happening behind the scenes. So they're all the parts of the organisation that are supporting that service to happen, to make sure that it's as efficient a service as it can possibly be. So service blueprint is something that you could move on to doing once you've built your user journey or your customer journey map. Thank you, Elise. And I'm handing back to Liam.
Cool. So let's move on to the next section, which is why do we map? And we sort of like talked a little bit about this anyway. But why we map, if we move on to the next slide, the key thing is that it helps us to, like, I love this phrase, is see the woods, not the trees, or not the bark, maybe. Like it helps you to see the whole thing, see the whole journey in one place, end to end. You see it at a slightly more high level, like a bird's eye view of it, and you're able to kind of move bits around, add steps in. Like it just helps you to sort of not be thinking about one specific interaction, but actually to take a step back and to see really how somebody's feeling as they move throughout your service and what areas are causing like friction, whether that's good or bad friction, but it's slowing them down in some way. It's creating a bottleneck of some way, or it's a frustration, it's a pain point. And just kind of seeing all those things laid out, it makes it actually a lot easier to just go, well, maybe if we just introduce this thing, that might tackle that frustration. It might make that thing, easier for that person. It's hard to do that when you're deep in the weeds of this one particular interaction. It's easier when you just see them all laid out in front of you. So it's about understanding somebody's journey through your service. And again, this is coming directly from your user research. So you're not just making this thing up. You're trying to inform as much of this thing as you possibly can based upon what you've learned so far. And again, seeing all that in order then helps you to kind of look at service improvement. Cool. So let's move on to the next phase, which is how to run a workshop to map your service with Vic.
Yeah, so when we're looking at how to map our service, we're looking at this being a collaborative process. And the idea is that everybody who's involved in that process is working together to build a shared understanding of what experience the users are having of that service. So actually, the running of the workshop in and of itself can be a really fruitful endeavour that can help you to build that understanding with stakeholders and help them to empathise with how the user is experiencing that service. So actually, the process of the workshop is as important as the building of the map itself. And in both of those activities, it really is about trying to make sure that you are building that empathy and you are understanding that user need and gaining those insights that are going to help make your service improvements later on. So I'm going to start off by looking at how you might prepare for that workshop. So make sure that everybody who is involved can contribute to that in the best way possible. So before the workshop, it's really important that you do spend a little bit of time preparing. And in the first instance, as we've talked about before, it's really important that the user experience map or the customer journey map is research informed. So you're using insight that you've gained from the user experience in order to inform your map. So some of the activities that Tom and Promise talked about last time, doing infinity mapping, or possibly converting that into some empathy mapping, in order to have that there ready then before you start looking at that user experience map. So one of your first jobs then is gathering all those research insights or any other relevant information about your service. Once you've done that, then it's thinking about what the scope of the workshop is. So what are the aims of the workshop? What are you hoping to achieve from that? Also just practicalities, the timings of the workshop, where you're going to, whether it's going to take place, is it going to happen online, is it going to happen in person? And then once you've done that, what materials are you going to need, what software you're going to need, are you going to map in? You can map in lots of different places. In Excel, you could do it on a PowerPoint slide, you can map on paper. Kitchen roll was one of Liam's suggestions before, post-it notes. But making those decisions beforehand, because once you're actually into the mapping of the service, you want to make sure that everybody can just get on with doing their best work and their thinking. So making sure that you've done all that preparation work in advance. Over to you, Liam, for how we might run the workshop.
Thank you. Yeah. So, first thing to say is actually this might be separate workshops. You might end up doing a couple of workshops. You might end up doing one, going and sort of validating that with some users to make sure that the map you've created is like pretty accurate. And then you might come back and do another workshop. It all, again, there are no rules to how you have to run these things. Will run them slightly different. It all depends on what it is you're trying to achieve, what the maybe the team makeup that you've got, whether you've got users who are able to come into the session with you, then that might mean you can do it all in one. It totally depends on what you want to learn from it and what your sort of capabilities are around that, and your the makeup of what that session is going to be. So after you've prepared, the first thing you want to do when you come into that workshop is to share, like with all the participants in a room, you've got all the materials, you've got everything that you need to run this workshop. The first thing to do is to make sure everyone knows the scope, everyone knows the aims, everyone knows what you're trying to achieve, everyone knows what you're trying to map, everyone knows that you're not like just making things up and adding them in. Everyone needs to know it's coming from research insights. Just get everybody on the same page, get them to share that vision of what this workshop's going to be and what it's going to achieve. And then like have a discussion around that research, have a discussion around the insights, have a discussion around what you know. And also like if you're the team that is like heavily involved with that service, well, your insights, they're not necessarily going to be coming from users all the time. Like you're going to be also super important in helping to map out like the logistical steps of that. Yeah, you're trying to frame it through the eyes of the user, and you do that through the user research, but you also know your service, so like you're able to sort of step by step put what happens in there, and you can map those things against each other. So bring all of that together, have a discussion around it, make sure you're all on the same page, you all have an base understanding of the research, and then it's time to start mapping. So the way that like we're talking about doing it, and again, there's many ways you can do it, is like start by step. How does somebody go through this service? What are the interactions that they take through their service? First, they walk through the door, then they do this, and then they do this. Okay, so step by step, what happens? Then like list any of the known frustrations. So again, that's going to come from your research. Okay, so somebody said, I can never do this thing, or this thing is causing me a problem. I always turn off at this point because of X, Y, and Z. Try and map those things against those steps. So you're able to then even if you did nothing else, you can straight away see, okay, so these are the steps that are causing people issues at the moment. That we know that is where people are having problems. That's what the user research has said. But then you see it in an order, and you're able to move things around. You're able to add steps. You're able to take steps away. It just allows you to see it. And then, like I said, sense check with users. This might be like if you're able to get a user or a couple of users into that workshop, well, you can do that there and then, and you can go, does this like feel accurate to you? It's not going to necessarily feel accurate for every single user, but does it feel accurate to you as a couple of users of our service? You might not have that luxury, and you might need to then go and take it away and show it and come back and do another workshop. You might choose not to do that step. Again, there's lots, it's all your choice how you build this workshop. But once you've kind of sense checked it, look for opportunities, look for any of those frustrations you can flip around and turn into like positives. Look for any of those things that are causing issues, and can they be removed? Are there easy changes that you can make to sort of improve this service? And then let's move on to the next slide, Elise, and let's have a look at what this might look like.
Yeah, so what we've got here is an example of what this could look like, and sort of coming back to some of Liam's points from before, there's more than one way of going about this. So in the same way we've talked about, you could do this in different formats. There's also different levels of detail that you might choose to put in. So we've gone quite high level on this as an example, and we've used this particular format for putting the user journey together. But if you go and have a look online, you will see that there are lots of other formats and different ways of doing this. If you do decide you want to use an online template like in Miro or in Mural, you will find that there are ready-made templates there that you could just use to apply your service to. So we've chosen to go quite high level here, but the main elements that we're trying to add in are that we're looking at that journey from end to end, from when the user first comes across that service and first wants to use that service, they've come across the problem that they want to solve. So in our example here, they want to get their hair cut, right through to the very end where they're leaving that service. And as long as you've got those that start point and that end point there, how much detail you go into in terms of the number of interactions you choose to include will depend on who is mapping the service and what kind of insights that you want to try and gain from that. So as I say, we've gone at this level of detail today just as an example. And I'll pass back to Liam, who's going to look at that first layer of the map.
Absolutely. So super easy to get started on something like this. Just think about your service and go, what is the first step somebody's going to take? In this case, first step, again, you can sort of choose to, we could have just mapped this from the point where they get into the hairdressers. We've decided to map it from the point of somebody booking an appointment. You could probably go further back and think about somebody going, oh, my hair looks a bit long, I probably need to get it cut. And then they think about which hairdressers are going to go to. And that is maybe a source of frustration for them, who knows. But so again, you can choose, it all depends on what it is you're trying to map and where you're trying to identify problems. In this case, we're just starting off by mapping out that first step, which is booking an appointment for us. That's the chosen part that we've done. Okay, if you go to the next slide for us, Elise.
So in the next level, this is where we're starting to consider some of those insights that we've gathered from our user research. So we're looking at the service interaction and then looking at when in the user research, any participants have told us about any difficulties, or it might be any parts of the service that actually they found really easy to use equally. And it might be here that we're direct quoting, as we have done here, about something that they're finding difficult and feeling worried about when they have to talk on the phone. Or it could be just other insights that we've drawn out from the affinity mapping, but it's really there in this part of the map, looking at those user interactions. Something that I wanted to mention here as well is this is where we can also look at the accessibility of our service. So here the users talked about feeling worried when they have to talk on the phone, and there's actually many reasons why a user of the service might find it difficult to pick up a phone and talk, for lots and lots of different reasons. What we've shared there just to the side, though, is an example from the Microsoft Inclusive Design Toolkit, where they look at how even if somebody doesn't have an accessibility issue that they need to have to address through the service all of the time, that sometimes you can have temporary and situational reasons why you might not be able to access a service in a particular way. And we always think about in user-centered design the fact that if you're making your service as accessible as possible for people who might have barriers to accessing the service, actually you will be making that service easier to access for everybody. For example, here in terms of not being able to pick up the phone, they give examples that it might be that this is someone who is unable to talk all of the time, but it could equally just be that at the moment they have a temporary reason for not being able to pick up the phone. For example, if they've got laryngitis, they've lost their voice. But actually, if you're somebody who doesn't speak English as a first language, or Welsh as a first language, or you've got a very heavy accent, that might also be a barrier to you being able to access a service that you can only access on the telephone. So one of the things that we're really looking at here is how we can make sure that the service is as accessible as possible for the most amount of users as possible. And research is a really important element in making sure that we properly understand different types of user perspectives, which is why it's really important as well when we're doing user research that we are considering the points of view from users from as many different backgrounds and cohorts as possible. So I'm going to hand you back to Liam now, who's going to talk about the next layer that we've put onto our user journey map.
So yeah, again, there's lots of ways you can spin these. I feel like I keep saying that's the ultimate caveat that keeps coming up. There's many ways you can do it. But I think for us, a really good next step is opportunities. So if this is what somebody does, and then this is how somebody feels about that interaction, good, bad. If it's a frustration, where's the opportunity to make, or what, is there an opportunity to make this thing better? Is there an opportunity to tweak the service? Is there an opportunity to just make an easy switch that can just can remove that frustration for somebody, changing something round? And very often there can be very easy fixes, not all the time, of course, and totally depends on what that is. But in my experience, I've seen lots of examples where it's just, if it's something on screen, for example, and somebody's frustration is, oh, I can never hit the button because it's too small. We just need to make this button bigger then, or move it. Or so, I've seen loads of examples of that where it's been a real tiny thing that actually causes a big friction point for somebody, a big kind of source of frustration for someone. So think about an opportunity at each step and go, is there an opportunity to make this frustration go away, or make it less of a frustration at the very least? Obviously the aim should be to remove it if you can. Okay, so let's move to the next slide.
Yeah, so here we've just popped back on there that full journey map. So you can see we've added our layers in actions, thoughts and opportunities for this particular map. And then moving from left to right, then we've popped in the different interactions that are going to happen through the service. And as I mentioned before, we've gone quite high level here, quite zoomed out on the service. You could zoom in and add in many more details. So for example, here where you're getting your haircut, we could literally add in the interactions where you are also having your hair washed and you have first, Lee mentioned before, you go a little bit earlier on where you're just noticing that you need a haircut and researching hairdressers. You could even then go a little bit further towards the end of that journey where you include, you know, how you interact with your customers after the service, maybe to get feedback on those kinds of things. So you could go in a lot more detail if you wanted to. And then just on this next slide, I'm just going to finish up with some examples of any optional next steps that you might want to take after you've mapped your journey, mapped your customer journey. So we talked about earlier, we showed an example of a service blueprint. So you could start adding in what's happening within the organization. So the interactions from their perspective with the customer or the service user, but also what's going on behind the scenes, looking at the backstage of that service and the internal workings within the organization that support that service. But we might also use this then to run workshops to start ideating solutions based on the opportunities that we've identified. You might also look at creating a future state journey map, so looking at what you would rather the user experience looks like, and then again you could build that into a blueprint of how the organization can support that service. It might be that you want to look at a particular interaction that you've identified that's particularly problematic, that you just want to look at that individual interaction and go down and look at that level and just storyboard how you might improve that particular interaction. We also would potentially use this then as well, start prototyping and testing ideas of service improvement. So once we've identified those opportunities and we've come up with some ideas about how we might improve that element of the service, then we'd be looking at as quickly and as easily using some low fidelity, simple prototypes for how we might improve that service. And we'd be testing those again using user research to check and get feedback loops on that to make sure that we're improving it in a way that works for the users. Or it could be something else. It really does depend on your service, and it depends on the insight that you've gained from your journey map about where you might take that to next. So I'm going to hand back to Liam now. We're just going to finish up for the last few minutes now with a little bit of information about what you can do today.
Absolutely. So yeah, if we go straight to the next slide for me at least. And really, like, you can just go and map your service. There is nothing stopping you. There shouldn't be any barriers stopping you right now that would mean you can't go and map your service, even if it is at a real kind of high level, just thinking about how somebody moves through your journey, your service, sorry, what their journey looks like through that service, and then trying to, you know, speak to some users to figure out perhaps, you know, or any pre-existing research that you have around this, like where people are, you know, dropping off, or where people are having issues, or whatever. However you can build that picture and then look at it and see how you can improve it. There's not really any barriers to stop you at a base level mapping that thing out and trying to identify some of those frustrations. That in terms of like how you do this, where you do it, you can again do it however you want. You know, there's Google Drive, there's PowerPoint, there's Post-it notes, there's Miro, there's all these programs. They're all good. It doesn't really make any difference. It's just boxes with some text in them, and you can do that. You don't even have to draw boxes if you don't want. You can just write it. You can tattoo it on your arm if that's what you want to do. It doesn't really matter. So there shouldn't be any barriers towards that. Okay, so whatever you feel comfortable in. And the only other thing we'd really like you to do is to complete our Menti, which on the next page, there is a QR code. A Menti is just a really a quick couple of things just to give us some feedback on the session, and like any improvements we can make around that. Also, we're really interested in running like a follow-up session to this, which is like a practical mini, like maybe 1 hour design sprint with anyone that would be interested, where we'll take you through the process of mapping your services out. So we'll get you all in a room, in a Teams room or a Zoom room or whatever, and we'll take you through the steps of mapping a service out. So even at the end of that, you could hopefully come away with like an MVP version of a journey map of your service. So we're really interested in running a session like that. So I think, Vic, are you going to post that in the chat? Just for anyone that might be interested, there's a little form, which Vic's going to post a link to now. If you could just quickly sign up to it, it's just literally name, email. Thanks, Vic. It's in the chat now. if you're interested in it, pop your name on there, and then we'll know to run that session or not, and we can contact you from there. Other than that, I think that's everything on Menti. And if we just go to the very last slide now, that's it. So we've got a couple of lunch and learns coming up now. So the next one is how to do pair writing and trio writing, and that's we run with Adrian. So we've got Adrian on the call, who's one of our lovely content designers here. Do you want to pop on and talk about the session, Adrian?
Yeah, sure. Hi, Liam. Hi, everyone. Sorry. Thank you, Liam and Vic, Annalise. So on the 7th of August, we're going to do a lunch and learn on how to do pair writing and trio writing. If you don't know about this, it's a technique or a technique and a half to collaborate in the design and production of content to deliver information that meets the needs of your users in the way they need it. So we're going to be looking at what it is, what the benefits of working that way, how to do it, and some things that you might want to consider. So if you work in content like myself, or you work with content people, maybe it might be good for you to come. And that's it from me.
Awesome. Diolch. Thank you so much. So that's everything for today. Thank you so much for coming. Again, if you could fill out that Menti, that'd be awesome. And again, if you are interested in attending like a little follow-up workshop with us, then please sign up to the form, which is in the chat, and then we'll know if we should run it or if we shouldn't. Thank you so much, everyone. Hope you have a lovely day, and we'll see you all soon.
Bye. Thank you.
Diolch yn fawr. Thank you. Diolch. Hwyl fawr.
Hwyl.